Thank you for taking that picture off where I look insanely tired. I'm aware of no other lecture series that hands you one of these on your way in and then makes it respectful by there not being too loud a noise. You know what I'm talking about? Just air, no need to annoy the space. Every time I speak, I have a moment beforehand where I wonder, why am I doing this? This is a terrible idea, you know? And I was happy to see that there's actually a door here. This corresponds, so like if I just leave, I've had enough. And it's like nothing against you. I love you guys, but I'm done, okay? I want to say thanks to Creative Mornings. I'm honored to be here this morning. Honored to have a chance to speak and share with you. And also happy Friday. Where I come from, Fridays were like a really big deal. Like kind of a ritual time where maybe you would order pizza, have a friend over to spend the night, and you might wear your favorite t-shirt. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So for those who still feel that and love that, happy Friday to you, to everyone. Welcome, all right? A bit of biographical info on who I am and where I come from. My name is Joshua Eric VonGunten in full, which I know is a mouthful, and most people just totally add or take away letters from my name. Like they're free to do whatever they want with it. Like, I'm just gonna vandalize this name real quick, okay? Often it's VonGunten, but my name is VonGunten, okay? And many people think it's German, but it's actually Swiss is the origin. I grew up here in Fort Wayne, mostly around the Georgetown area. Any Georgetown people in the house? I say, yeah, Kelch Pharmacy. You know, maybe you're gonna rent a VHS there and also pick up your prescription for your grandma. I say around Fort Wayne because my parents moved a lot. Because they had this like innovative spirit to do the next thing, to take on the next project, to move with the movement, so to speak. My dad is like this incredibly hard worker who would start at like 5 a.m. every day, finish a long day, and come home and find out that my mom had a room for him to paint or like a project for him to do. They took on a couple just straight up ugly houses, like just ugly situations, and they turned them into homes full of love, noise, and truth. My mom, who's here this morning, she's right there, you guys. My mom, yeah, Julie. You can call her Julie VonGunten. My mom's vision to look at something that's hard and rough and to see possibility and potential for beauty and inspiration has been a lifelong source of energy and influence upon my life. So thank you, Mom. I love you. My dad's hardworking spirit and ability to see beauty in odd places made them a wonderful team. At one point a few years ago, my sisters and I tried to count the number of cars my dad brought home between the time we were little kids through college, and the number was like high 40s. If you've ever driven a Ford Escort, get loud. An Oldsmobile Cutlass, a Chevy Lumina, my favorite, a Dodge Daytona, a Pontiac Grand Prix. These are the cars, like, if you've ever driven one here in town, there's a good chance you've driven like one of our cars, okay? Because my dad is classically known for finding cars for like $300 and telling us beforehand that he found something really nice. Pulling in the driveway with just a total beater. At one point, I have this clear memory of my dad saying he's bringing home a car for my 16-year-old sister, and we're waiting to the end of the day. She's standing on the lawn, and he turns around, and my sister just breaks down weeping and runs into the house, you know? But seriously, though, my dad would clean up a beat-down, ugly car and make it work and make something good happen out of that. And I'm so grateful for him and his example to me of hard work and working through hard things to make something good. There was a lot of this spirit around our house, making things, improving things, taking on projects, helping people. When I was in 5th or 6th grade, I got the idea that a paper route would be like a great idea for me. That was like, I saw kids doing paper routes and I was like, how can I get that job? How can I wear a canvas sack around my neck and ride a ugly bike, nearly getting hit by cars, throwing papers all over the Blackhawk neighborhood? My house growing up, it was the norm to work and to take on like hard projects or weird things out of a desire to make things better. So I'm so grateful for that spirit. More currently, to these pictures here, the most defining thing about me is my family. My wife, Ashley, who is also here, beautiful Ashley, right there. And our 4 kids, Olivia, Rosalind, Truett, and Elise. That's Elise down at the bottom right, who just gives the best like hugs and kisses, you know? And the experience of my life to be loved by them unconditionally has just been such a beautiful thing. That's my family. We live in a 100-year-old house near downtown where we can be found jumping on a trampoline, playing soccer, folding laundry, holding guinea pigs, and trying to decide if our old pug is going to make it one more night or not. Okay? Sorry about that. She's lived a good life, you guys. It's been a good situation, I promise. So thanks for allowing me to share a little bit of where I'm coming from this morning. One of my favorite things in the world is to sit down and hear people's stories. And so please know that I would love nothing more than to sit down with each and every one of you and to hear your story and to know where you're coming from and what makes you you. And you can hit me up on that. I would love to buy you coffee. Our theme today is wonder, so I want to lead off with my big idea. And then after I say this, I want to define it and unpack it and leave you with a challenge or two. Can I challenge you at the end of this? All right, let's go.
For a coffee.
For a coffee. Let's go. We got it. You can go to the blank slide next, Olivia. To wonder is to stand between two worlds. It's a powerful and revolutionary space that invites us to see new possibilities. Our lives, that's you and me, our lives, so our city, our neighborhoods, our homes, our families, our places of work and social spaces, are less than they could be when wonder is minimized or crowded out by certainty or busyness. To define wonder, straight up like dictionary style, it's the emotion that's excited by a strange or surprising moment, a feeling of surprise, of puzzled interest, to be filled with admiration, amazement, awe, a sense of reverence and respect for something beautiful, masterful, impressive. I love this word and I love this category, so I was so excited to receive this theme. And just know, I would love to talk about this for 7 hours if we could just do a sleepover here at Fancy and Stable. A lock-in. So let's go. So if you like nuance, wonder is really fun to research. It's somewhat mysterious for sure, because it's very hard to manufacture. It's one of the least understood emotions, experts tell us, because it's very hard to replicate in clinical study. If you listen to experts who talk about emotion or study this stuff, they can tell you so much about something like sadness. And they can tell you that in impressive detail, exactly what's happening in the mind or body. But wonder is different. It occurs through a complex combination of factors at play, which create a feeling, an emotion, an experience, a state almost, that defies description. To wonder is to enter into mystery, creatively. To wonder is to enter into mystery. It's a feeling state involved in the overlay of many, many different things. And so the language or vernacular around this experience reveals subtlety and nuance. It's like listening to a highbrow expert describe craft beer, food, or coffee. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like somebody who just uses all of these words and you're in awe of what's happening. Words like tinged, layered, tasting notes. You know what I'm talking about? Like you're doing this, you're just tasting notes. And then there's also a finish. There's a surprise vision or feeling tinged with a little bit of shock, layered with notes of excitement and possibility, followed by the subtle sense that things are not what they seem. And it finishes with a sense that one has been invited into something big or beautiful. In cinema, which is one of my favorite places to encounter wonder, it's often depicted as a surprising, astonishing experience where the room or setting actually like physically changes in stages, where one world becomes the next. I think there's a slide there for that. So to wonder is to stand between two worlds. It's this space between. And these are often my favorite scenes in movies, cinematically speaking. So just to name a few like kids movies, you may think of like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where those kids are like moving through that wardrobe. You know what I'm talking about? And there's like this level of like darkness, and there's like a physical change that's taking place that's beyond one's control or ability to make it happen, right? Maybe you remember this scene in the famous book and movie adapted by Spike Jonze, Where the Wild Things Are. Anybody a fan of that? Go ahead and flip through there. So here's Max, in his room, right? And this is what wonder looks like from like a kid's perspective. Next, the bedroom, right, begins to change. And the text actually says, and that very night, in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew. Do you feel that? Until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around, and an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max. Go to the next one. And the next slide kind of shows those three scenes all laid out on top of each other, next to each other. Wonder starts with a surprise in which we experience humility. It's bigger than us. It moves us into a nuanced or layered state of questioning, astonishment. What is happening? There's a curiosity that takes place, right, in the creative process. There's a possibility for a new vision or a lived reality. And I say possibility here because it's a momentary invitation in which we are bewildered or taken aback for a moment into the, again, only possibility or potential for something to be seized. Remember that boat that comes to Max? He has to get in it, right? Like a boat tumbles by, right? A private boat where he sails in and out of years, right? But it's always only an invitation. Will we get in the boat or not? It's a liminal space, right? And if you're familiar with that language, it's this like quality of ambiguity or even like disorientation that occurs between the middle stages, like a rite of passage standing between two worlds. A liminal space is the time between what was and what is, what will come. It's a transformational kind of space. In story and experience, I thought of a time where my wife and I were backpacking a little bit, and we had this amazing privilege to be able to do a little backpacking and traveling through Europe. And we were on a train one evening, and we realized that we were getting into the next town far, far later than planned. We were going to arrive in this small town in Switzerland at like 2 a.m., really late. Everything's closed. What do we do? And so we start to worry a little bit. And we begin sort of talking aloud about this. And this man in front of us just turns and he's like been listening, And he's got these like crazy, this is ominous. He's got these like crazy eyes and he's like, I take care of you, just come with me. And we're like, oh, this is like a really easy no, Dude, this is like a scene out of a movie. Like, why didn't you just say, I want to kill you? Just say it, man. But he keeps at it. I take care of you. Come with me. So we get off this train at like 2 a.m. and we're like feeling self-sufficient still. And I'm like, no, we're gonna find a place. There's gonna be something. And we pull up into this little town and it is like dead, like tiny town. People have been asleep for like 5 hours. You know what I'm talking about? Nothing is open. We're standing there with our backpacks and the train pulls off. And again, I take care of you, come with me. And so, against like wisdom, right? And with my wife like behind me, and me clenching my fists, I'm like, okay, show us what you mean. You see, the room began to hang with vines, right? A forest began to grow, and we took a step. And so we walked around the corner, and we turned out of the little city square, and then it got really creepy because he began walking across a dark field, right? It's like, this is it. This is it. I've always wondered, this is how it ends, you know? A dark field. We walk across this field feeling ever more hesitant, and we come to this sound of like bass pumping. You know what I'm talking about? Like a house party. I'm like, what? We turn another couple corners, and he opens the door on this building, which turns out is this youth hostel. And he says, see, I take care of you, come with me. And so we're still hesitant, but we come inside and we check out the space and we hear this just insanely loud music. It's 2 a.m. And we're like, well, we need to check this out, you know? We go down into this basement and it's just black lighting. Like you can't see anything, black lighting. There's 100 people in there and they're dancing to Ghostbusters. Seriously. Germans screaming, who can you call? Like this. Like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And so we spent the night dancing with this collective of people to really obscure 80s American pop hits, okay? But you could see like a boat tumbled by and we had to make a decision at some point to take the next step. We were not in control of the process. And so wonder and creativity, I believe, invites us to let go of control, to move somewhere that is uncertain, somewhere where there may not be an ROI, so to speak, right? What's my return on this time? What's my return on this investment? What's my return on seeing this project out? The great projects, right, are mysterious, and you don't know where they're going. And we need to learn to inhabit that space together. Another story, in 2005, I was working for a wonderful nonprofit called Young Life, and it's this amazing thing that allows you to sit in circles with kids and to talk about life and to get real. And I know that just sounds like really creepy to a lot of you guys, but it's a youth ministry of sorts, okay? But really interesting and creative. And I had started here in Fort Wayne to do that, and was new to the scene. And I had a meeting in Indianapolis where I was meeting with other people who were doing my job. Okay, so I went to Indianapolis. I was nervous, you know, meeting these people from that city, from Louisville, from Lexington, Bloomington. There was a collective of people. And they did not mean to make me feel bad, but the conversation right out of the gate was, somebody said, hey, I just saw an article. This was like January 2005. There was an article in Men's Journal about Fort Wayne being the dumbest city in the country. Does anybody remember this? Yeah. And so I'm walking into this new group of people of which I am meeting for the first time. I'm feeling insecure and vulnerable. And they're like, hey, did you see the article about your hometown? Good luck, man. And so this was like a difficult thing for me. And something happened in that moment that was a seed planted that began to grow the room with vines, where the room began to change for me very slowly. And I was so destabilized by that, even a little bit offended, surprised, that it just worked on me. And it worked on me, and it worked on me, because I knew there was something wrong. And so I want to say this. To be offended may be our greatest moments to be moved into wonder. Okay? So someone challenges us, or says something we don't like, or even is mean or cruel about our work, right? There's something there to hold on to. And that doesn't mean what has been said is true at all. It means that something beautiful wants to grow out of that offense. Can you get down with that, friends? That ugly thing wants to be transformed into something beautiful. And so I held on to that moment and rehearsed it in my mind. For like weeks I was like thinking about what I would say, Or like I had a couple emails, crafted. Like, tell me. I was like sweating, So in 2005 that started, and then by life circumstance, through work, I began to travel out to Portland, Oregon on a regular basis. And if you know anything about Portland, it is like the proudest city in maybe the world. You know what I'm talking about? Like people get to Portland and they take pictures of themselves with the carpet at the airport. And people bow down and they kiss it. And it sounds like hilarious, People love that city. And I began to wonder about that, and it began to me to appear as a juxtaposition against what I had heard and experienced about Fort Wayne. And I began to wonder, what happens that someone feels proud of a city? What are the origins of what has to take place for someone to believe that something more is possible? And I began doing a little bit of research about Portland, and I discovered is no shock to any of us, is fairly obvious. Like these were conscious decisions people made decades ago. Somebody believed that Portland, Oregon was a beautiful, sacred space, and that work needed to be done there to make the city more inclusive, more walkable, and to sort of take care and to cultivate the culture, right? Portland, Oregon doesn't happen by mistake. It happens through the work of wonder, of cultivation, of beauty. And so I began to think about Fort Wayne that way, and I just decided, like, I had been someone who was like quick to make fun of this city. Like I grew up around Georgetown, Like, come on, like let's just start making fun of it right now, right? So, and I had this like narrative in my head, right, of like, I'm gonna move to Portland, Oregon, and then I'm gonna participate in something. And what I had to realize, you guys, is that a space like that cannot change the emptiness like in your soul. So like, as long as I'm looking for Portland, Oregon to like make me feel fulfilled and like I'm cool somehow and I'm with the conversation and the people, it's never gonna happen. Because you get out there and you start to hear about Bend. You know what I'm talking about? Everybody left Portland to go to Bend, right? And there's like some other place where it's always better. And so I'm getting extremely hot right now. I'm about to leave the back door. Let's go. And so I decided this. It was time for me, just my little space, my little area, what I was in control of, to banish negativity about Fort Wayne, to stop thinking that way, stop saying things like that, and to begin speaking a different vision. And so out of that, years later, as the vines grew and I got aboard the boat that tumbled by, I said, this is Fort Wayne rising. This is not just Fort Wayne, this is Fort Wayne rising. And I have said that so many times in my heart and mind that on like digital applications that ask for your city, I have now typed in rising as the third word in our city because I believe it so much and because I refuse to let what others outside define the space that I know is possible here. Amen? Yes. So, next slide. Wonder is revolutionary. It's an invitation to see new possibilities. It invites us to imagine a new reality or to see beyond the status quo as things really are. It's revolutionary. It's where things start. It's where things happen. But I do want to point this out. It's a humble, curious, open act. It's humble. It questions the status quo and disarms our assumptions. is to stand at the threshold between two worlds, to behold something which surprises us and moves us to see with new eyes. Now, wonder is a paradox because it is a strength through weakness, okay? Which is a classical spiritual truth. Like if you're interested in spirituality, you've probably heard of this idea of strength through weakness, and that's a confusing idea, right? And here for me, one of, personally, my greatest inspirations around spirituality has been the teaching of Jesus. And he talks about this, and I think lives this way, okay? So, a favorite writer of mine, Jean Vanier, who also draws from the Christian tradition, he says this. He says, a Christian community should do as Jesus did. They should propose ideas, not impose them. Its attraction must lie in the love between brothers and sisters, not in controlling other people. Okay? So Jesus comes on the scene and he starts talking about this kingdom, this like other possibility, this like reality that's an invitation for people, if they want to get into the boat and to see a different kind of possibility for things, right? And I believe he does this in such a like winsome, kind way. I believe he does this in a way that all kinds of people were like drawn to him and like just wanted to be around him. And so I want to take a moment to say we find ourselves in a cultural moment where I think Christianity has, I'm just going to say it, it's in many ways been co-opted by hateful and oppressive people, okay? And I just want to say this, like, I can't change that, that's way bigger than me. I just want to say, I'm so sorry. Like, from somewhere super deep, I'm so sorry if anyone here has experienced a form of Christianity that's controlling, hateful, oppressive, and not inclusive to you and who you are. The Jesus I know, he hears your story. If you've experienced that, he hears that and he weeps. He weeps because that's so utterly different from what he's trying to do. I believe he kindly comes and he winsomely proposes ideas out of wonder. He sees a new possibility and he invites us into something, but he has no interest in forcing it. So I want to say this. My spirituality, it needs vulnerability and humility, or it becomes a system of control. And your wonder, your creative work, for all of us, it needs vulnerability and humility, right? Or it becomes a way to scoff and look down on other people who aren't as good, who aren't as established, who aren't as highbrow, or who do it differently, right? We all sort of are prone to this temptation, right? To lose the wonder of vulnerability and humility in what we craft and how we do our work, right? So in so many ways, I have been saved by those temptations by cultivating friendships with people who are vulnerable, all right? That has become my way of like seeing again, my way of being restored onto a new way of seeing. There might be a slide for this, possibly, but it says this, keep going. By seeing the world through the eyes of those who have little control, you can keep going. By seeing the world through the eyes of those who have very little control, we get sacred glimpses of how things can and should be better. Okay? So wonder is essential in our creativity, in our daily flow, because it allows us to see anew what life is like for other people. We need new ways of seeing if we're going to discover new ways of being. For me, I've been saved by a friendship with a good buddy of mine named Paul. Paul was born with a number of developmental disabilities, making life very, very hard for him. And to make that even more difficult, sadly born into a family that did not have the resources or awareness to care for him at a young age. And so what that has resulted in for Paul is that he's alone, that he lives alone. And his cerebral palsy, one of his many things he faces, makes it very difficult for him to walk. Okay? Now, Paul has been embraced by the community and given jobs within like a mile or two of like where he lives. But one of his primary struggles, right, is to walk to work when conditions are not favorable. So they're often doing like construction all over this city, right? And the sidewalks get closed, and there's no way for Paul to walk or get through a construction zone because he'll fall. We go through like winter here, right, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, for like 9 months. And when it's icy out or rainy out or difficult to move about outside, it's very difficult for Paul to get to work, okay? So I have been now, in my friendship with Paul, suddenly aware of the sidewalks that need to be fixed, right? Of accessibility issues in Fort Wayne that are a serious problem for him because we don't have a public transit with Paul in mind, okay? Now when there's ice on the ground and I'm like trying not to fall myself, I'm thinking about Paul and how he's gonna fall on this and get like badly injured, and he doesn't have a safety net underneath him to take care of that hospital bill or even someone to like get him to the hospital. Do you know what I'm talking about? And so what I wanna say is that as creatives, we badly need relationships with people like Paul to help us see again, right? Again, we're living in a cultural moment where if we're not careful, we end up surrounded in an echo chamber with people we agree with and people who have a similar life experience. And that's dangerous. That's not a good thing. Creativity and beauty doesn't come out of that space. We need people like Paul to help us see this city again, right? And so if I can give you a few challenges, that's going to be one of them in a moment. I have found the organization of Big Brothers Big Sisters to be a marvelous place to develop a relationship like this. I heard recently that there are 300 kids waiting, actually, for mentors to sign up and to hang with them. Can you guys believe that? There's 300 families saying, we would like our kid to have a big brother or big sister. That's a wonderful need. And so I want to share a few challenges, and then like if you want to nerd out and like read something, I'm going to share a book with you. And then I'm going to wrap up with this just very briefly. I read a book last year or a couple years ago by Gregory Boyle called Tattoos on the Heart. Has anyone read this book? Yeah, all I did was I just cried my way through this book because it changed my life. And Gregory Boyle says this: here is what we seek. Here is the kind of wonder we seek. A compassion that can stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment at how they carry it. I find that to be incredibly beautiful and helpful. And that idea has saved my life in so many ways. And I want... Say that again. Here is what we seek: a wonder and compassion that would stand in awe at what the poor have to carry, rather than stand in judgment in how they carry it. I want to commend these 3 steps to you in closing, and then I'm going to run out this door. You can go to the next slide, Olivia. These are 3 things that I would encourage you to do, and I would spend an hour on each of these if I had the time. 1, if we want to cultivate wonder, we need to spend time outdoors, preferably in the wilds, right? Indoor places, although wonderful and beautiful and have their place in our lives, really limit the potential for new wonder. Go to Franke Park, go to nature preserves, walk the trails, and take it in. This is where the greats like John Muir and people who have transformed our society have pointed to as the place, right? It's to be in the wilds. 2, time with those who are vulnerable. Cultivate a relationship, a friendship with somebody who's vulnerable. And I want to add this. This is anything but a top-down, one-way thing. I have learned far more from Paul, far more from him, than he has learned from me. So we develop friendships that are equitable and that give and take both ways. And then 3, time without entertainment, okay? I'm talking about in what we call in our house screen time, right? If you want to be someone of creativity who cultivates wonder and inspires those things, it just cannot happen when we're always looking at a screen. And so time to be even bored, time to be in quiet, time to be alone with our thoughts is where this stuff happens. I'm going to end by reading my big idea, and I'm going to close. And if you have questions, we'll talk for a minute. To wonder is to stand between two worlds. It's a powerful, revolutionary space that invites us to see new possibilities. Our lives, your life, my life, is less than it could be when wonder is minimized or crowded out by certainty or busyness. Thank you, my friends. I thought that was mine, so.